Hi there, Prayer Plant Girl here. Today I'm going to talk about some of the herbs that I like to get started earlier on in the winter. You know, some of those herbs that take a little bit longer, usually they have a woodier stem, and they just take longer to get growing and be a good usable product in the end when I want them to grow outside in the summer. And so I'm going to start them indoors. And the benefit of doing something like herbs indoors is even if they get a little bit ahead of schedule and they're doing really well and growing strong in the house, they're not going to get so big and out of control that they're a big problem in the house. And you can be using them and eating off of them right indoors, and it doesn't cause any issues at all. I already have some sage, oregano, and rosemary growing in my LetPot. Just have a little look over there. So I don't know how you can see them, but there's oregano right here. There's some sage. Lift that up. So there's the oregano, there's the sage. There's just a little bit of rosemary there. I actually have basil as well, but that's not one that you need to start early. I just have it going in my LetPot. So I'm going to be starting thyme from seed today. I'm going to be planting my rosemary out of the LetPot because I think it will do better in a more well-draining soil than growing in the water system. I could plant the thyme into my LetPot, and I did think about doing that, but I think it'll grow just as well in the clay dish here, and then I can use the LetPot space for other things. If I have time, I am also going to transplant. I have started some seeds of spinach and some lettuce that don't seem to start well for me in the LetPot, and so I've just kind of germinated the seeds in paper towel, and I'm going to try and pop them into some spaces in the LetPot as well if we get a few minutes at the end here. We'll see. I kind of have a busy day planned, but my main goal today is to get the herbs planted up here and just show you what I'm doing with that. So let's get started here. I have just a mix of soil. So this is called a grower's mix that I purchased in bulk, but you can also just get peat moss. That's mostly what it is, with a bit of perlite. I've added more perlite and a little bit of vermiculite to this as well. And I just like when it has this kind of consistency. You can see how much perlite is in there, and it's almost has a sandy kind of look to it because of the vermiculite as well. And that just makes it to hold some amount of moisture without being a waterlogged soil, but also allow drainage. So that's why I do that. I don't have a specific ratio that I use. I just kind of eyeball it. So I'm just going to start with the thyme. So it's thyme, rosemary, sage, and oregano that I find need that little bit more time. Like the plants that are growing in the LetPot now, I planted those seeds in October, and I have trimmed a little bit off of those plants, off the sage and the oregano, but not much. And you can see how much they've grown. Isn't a huge amount considering it's been about 3 months now, 3.5. So I've just lightly tamped some soil into this little pot here. Find my thyme seeds. So here, this is what I'm growing. It's winter thyme. They're very fine seeds. So that's probably several dozen seeds there. I'm just going to sprinkle them over the soil. I'm going to press them just to make sure they have good contact with the soil. And I'm just going to sprinkle some fine vermiculite over top. The vermiculite helps to keep some moisture on the seeds, keep the seeds damp without being too wet that they're going to rot. And then you don't have to be keeping the entire soil space super damp, and that can help cut back on the chance of having fungus gnat issues in your soil while you're waiting for your seeds to germinate. I'm going to put my little tag in there, move these paper packages, and I'm just going to make sure that vermiculite is nice and damp because that's the whole purpose of it being there. Now I'm using a clay pot. That will help in the end when the time is growing to not be too wet in here. Some of these herbs, like these herbs that are used to a more dry, arid region, don't want to have too much moisture around their root space when they're growing, and they do better in these breathable clay pots. But it can be a bit of trickier to get them to germinate if you have them in here, because the clay wicks the moisture out of the soil, and they can dry out quite quickly and easily, especially in dry homes that are heated in the winter like mine is. So I'm just going to take a baggie. I've reused this baggie a few times for other things. Just set it over top, and that just makes a little growing dome just to keep the moisture in there, and it should help just to hold the moisture until they get germinated. And once the seeds have germinated, I can take the baggie off. So I'm just going to set this to the side. And this is the pot I'm hoping to put my rosemary in. I think the little plug that it's growing in is taller than this, but we'll get some soil in here, and then I may have to trim the plug down and see what we can do to get it out of the LetPot and into this pot. But like I said, these clay pots will help to draw the moisture away, and that'll help. The rosemary really doesn't like to have moist soil around its roots. It just kind of wants free-flowing, free-draining moisture around the roots. I'm going to use the same soil because of that, the same potting mix. I think it will work well for the rosemary and give it that aeration and drainage that it wants. So I've just put, if you can see that there, I've made kind of a dent in the soil there in the middle. So I'll just grab the rosemary plug out of my LetPot. We'll bring it over here with some snips and see what we can do to get it so it fits in here, because I couldn't find the next size clay pot that I have is quite a bit bigger, and I think that's too much. So I'd like to just bump it to here, and I'll slowly bump it up as I need to give it that root space. If rosemary gets too root bound, then it's going to be drying out completely, and then you're going to be giving it a lot of water usually, and it goes through cycles, and that can, I found when growing rosemary, as I've played around with it, that can be hard on the plant, which can be hard on any plant, and it's really easy to have happen, I find, with the rosemary. Here's the rosemary that I have right now that was growing in the LetPot. So it germinated in there, grew in there. You see roots coming out the bottom, but they're not looking the greatest. And I think that's because it's getting too much water. And I think putting it into a pot away from that water system of the LetPot will be helpful for the rosemary. So I'm just going to gently try and get it pulled out of here. See what the height is. Oh, it might fit in here without trimming it. Well, that'd be good. So I think we'll just put it in there, get these roots. I might trim just a tiny bit off the bottom. It's a little bit tall when I get it in there. And cutting these bottom roots won't hurt it. I'll just encourage them to branch out more. It has good roots coming. I don't know how well you can see, but there's roots coming out of the sponge all the way around. So those will just branch out more. Yeah, that looks better. So I want to have room so it's not right above the top of the pot, so I can put water in that can soak in gently and through the pot. So I'll just fill this up the rest of the way so it's all covered. I know the lighting isn't the greatest in here. We're in the middle of kind of making a shuffle of what is in what room of our house right now, so we're in the process of still changing things around, and I'm just having to make do with the space I have in the moment. And we should get set up a little bit better here, hopefully by next month. And I'm hoping to get a video put together at the end of January, beginning of February, showing you my shelving and the lights I use. Someone asked for that about a month ago, and I just haven't been able to get that done. So there's the rosemary planted up in there. It looks pretty tiny in there right now, but rosemary, like I said, wants that little bit more room for the roots to move and grow out so it doesn't get root bound and dry out too quickly or wind up with being overwatered because of over drying. So I think that's the right solution there. So put the tag in. This soil is damp right now, but I will keep an eye on it because Like I said, this is a clay pot and I didn't soak my clay pot before I planted in it. So it's going to draw some of that moisture out of this pot, out of this soil in the next day here, and I will have to water in the next day. And after that, I'll just keep an eye on it. And when the very top part of the soil starts to dry out, that's when I will water it again. And I won't let it dry out completely through the whole plant. So that's the thyme and the rosemary. And I think I have a few minutes that I can try and show you these seeds. I know the spinach has germinated. I'm not sure about the lettuce, and we'll pop them into my little LetPot cells there. And that'll just be one more thing that I have done and growing on, so I can be harvesting and eating some food indoors in the winter in Saskatchewan, Canada. Okay, so I just have this little tray. It came with cut up fruit in it at some point, and I just have been germinating the seeds in here, and I just have the packs on top so I know what's what. So I have Escalade spinach, Little Gem lettuce, and Bloomsdale long-standing spinach. Just set those out of the way, and let's have a peek and see what's happening. So this is the Escalade spinach, and you can see it's germinated quite well. And oh, the lettuce, I don't know how well you can see, but it's standing up there. The seeds are lifted and they've germinated as well. And this towel's almost drying out, but here's the Bloomsdale long-standing spinach, and it has also germinated. So I'm gonna do 2 cells of each thing. So I'm just gonna grab one more of the little plugs to put in where the rosemary came out, and then we can just try and get them wrangled into these little plugs and into my LetPot. So here's one of the little plugs. They grow quite a bit larger once they're soaking in the water, so I'll just poke it back there. I don't know if you can see how well it's floating right now, but it'll absorb the water as we work, and it'll be ready to plant in a moment here. So I'm just going to start with the Escalade spinach. And I'm going to try and get it lifted off the paper. I might need to wet it a bit just to help it come loose. So, I don't want to damage it too much. I just want to get it to lift if I can, hopefully with roots intact. If I take some of the paper towel, that's fine too. Okay, so there it is. I know the light's kind of not the greatest here. So I'm going to try and just take it and set it down. Oops. Come here. Set it down into the plug. There, I've got it jammed down in there in that plug. I'll try and do that with a couple here. Just gently peel them up off the paper as much as I can. So I just kind of peeled the paper back from this root and snipped it away where I needed to with the scissors. And I'm going to take it over. Just kind of get it centered in the hole and just slowly feed it down into the LetPot cell. These should have probably, oops, oh, I broke it. These should have probably been done yesterday, maybe even the day before, but I was traveling with I coach high school curling, so I was traveling with them, and I couldn't be home to do that. So I'm just going to take this one, see if I can get it to go in with the other here. And then hopefully one or both of them survives this treatment here, but it's kind of rough handling, but they usually come out of it all right. And this one here has germinated. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's the little point coming out, so I'll just put it in the hole with this one as well. That's the point I would have rather had them go in. The other two seeds did not germinate. I'll just leave them in here for now, but they'll probably wind up just going in the trash. Okay, I guess I added another light so you could see better, and then I didn't turn the camera back on. But I've got all the seeds popped into the LetPot here. I'll just show you. The lettuces weren't as far along in their germination. Now I moved that light again. There. So they were easy to just pop in there into the cells. And I just put a couple in each just to make sure. But when they have just barely germinated, that's the ideal time because they're very easy to pop in. They just have the little rootlet out, and you can just drop them down into the plug and they'll grow well that way. And I put little hot caps on just because that'll help hold the extra moisture in it, because they're used to being in this little conditions right now. So until they really get growing in the LetPot, I'll just leave those on. And I took them off of some other plants that had started to germinate in here. And then here's the Bloomsdale spinach. Here's one of them, and I had one in each of these plugs that I put that was taller, further along, in a couple. And then one I also put in here that has just barely started to germinate. And you probably can't see it, but it just dropped right down in there. So I just still put two started seeds in each hole because, you know, they've been handled rough here. Some of them were a little too far along, and that way I should still get definitely one plant. I can always trim them back to one if both of them come up and do well. So that's what I'm working on in my little grow space today. Thanks for coming along with me. If you are looking to have some of these woodier, slower growing herbs going in your garden this year, or even just want to have some indoors, now is the perfect time to get them started. And you can definitely start them in a system like the LetPot if you have one, or you can have them in pots like I've done here. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.